So imagine one of the most famous entertainers of an entire generation,
Okay, I'm picturing it.
like a global Hollywood icon, right? A guy whose whole life is just a whirlwind of stage lights, massive crowds, and, unrelenting pressure.
Yeah, the classic rock and roll lifestyle.
Exactly. But now, I want you to picture that exact same man sitting at this wobbly plastic table under the flickering fluorescent lights of an almost entirely deserted fish and chip shop.
Wow, that is quite a visual shift.
Right. And he's just sitting there while his 90-something-year-old mother tries her absolute hardest to order a Harvey Wallbanger from some bewildered teenager behind the counter.
That is just a spectacularly jarring image, isn't it? I mean, it completely shatters that cartoonish cliche of what we, assume fame looks like behind closed doors.
It really does. And that is exactly the reality we are exploring in today's deep dive. We are looking at excerpts from music producer Kenny Denton's memoir.
Uh-huh. There ain't no rules in rock and roll.
That's the one. And we're focusing specifically on the life of Anthony Newley, or Tony Newley, as his friends called him.
Right.
Our mission today for you, the listener, is to basically strip away all those paparazzi flashes. We want to look at the profound duality of celebrity life versus intimate and often really messy reality.
And it gets very messy.
Oh, definitely. We're going to examine how this massive pop idol managed to keep his feet on the earth, largely thanks to two extraordinary women, his mother, Grace, and his later-in-life partner, Gina Fratini.
Yeah, the trajectory we are charting for you today is, well, it's really a psychological study.
For sure.
We are going to look at the mechanisms of how Grace acted as this ultimate reality check against the delusions of stardom, and then how Tony weaponized his own alter ego as a coping mechanism.
Which is fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get into his tragic final artistic epiphany and the chaotic, deeply human fallout of his passing.
Right, so to really grasp the psychology of the pop idol, I feel like we have to start with the soil he grew from.
Definitely. You have to start with Grace Newley.
Yes, the Duchess, as they called her. During the events of this book, she is in her late 80s or maybe early 90s, and she's living with Tony in Esher, Surrey.
Yeah.
And she is described as this petite, sprightly force of nature with a really high-pitched Cockney lilt. But what's fascinating isn't just her personality, it's the specific function she served in his life.
Yeah, she provided friction.
Friction. How do you mean?
Well, if you look at the sociology of massive fame, right, the real danger isn't actually the workload, it's the isolation.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, fame creates this terrifying echo chamber. Suddenly, every idea you have is brilliant. Every joke you make is hilarious.
But everyone around you is just nodding along.
Exactly. You are surrounded by an entire economy of sycophants whose livelihoods literally depend on keeping you happy.
Wow, yeah.
So Grace was the ultimate countermeasure to that environment because she fundamentally refused to adapt her Cockney expectations to his Hollywood reality.
And Kenny Denton illustrates this perfectly with his very first interaction with her. He comes over to the house and Grace asks if he wants tea.
Standard British greeting, right.
Right. But Kenny says he'd actually prefer coffee. And Grace just looks at him in mock horror.
Oh, I love this part.
She says, "What's a Cockney boy like you want with that American stuff?"
That is so good.
And naturally, he immediately folds and opts for the tea.
I mean, you have to, right? But it's a small moment that totally establishes her dominance over the artificiality of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, she doesn't care who you are.
Exactly. She forces the people in Tony's orbit to code switch back to reality. There is another brilliant anecdote where Tony is reading a letter from an old teacher.
Oh, right.
And he clarifies to his mother that this was the teacher who was, quote, the lesbian.
And Grace's reaction is just priceless.
Yeah, she doesn't clutch her pearls at all. She just gives this bemused sigh and says, Tony, you done arf know some funny people.
She constantly reduced these titans of the industry to their everyday mundane neuroses. Like, she casually mentions that Peter Sellers used to drop by all the time simply because he always had women trouble.
Just another guy with relationship issues.
Exactly. And Orson Welles was just a truly wonderful man who happened to be around. If fame is this hot air balloon constantly pulling Tony up into the stratosphere of illusion, Grace wasn't just heavyweight holding him down.
No, she was an active mechanism.
Right. She was forcing his brain to constantly code switch from global icon back to just a son whose mother is serving him jellied eels.
And that active grounding, it wasn't just some quirky dynamic that happened exclusively behind closed doors. Tony actively sought out those moments of friction.
Because he needed an escape.
Exactly. He needed to escape the crushing weight of his own public persona, which leads us directly to that surreal Saturday night you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Let's talk about the chip shop. So it's April 1996. Tony calls up Kenny and his wife Sue completely last minute.
Typical rock star move.
Yeah, and he says he wants to take them and the Duchess out for dinner in Esher. But because it's a Saturday night, Sue calls around, and every single restaurant in town is predictably fully booked.
Right, because you can't just walk in on a Saturday night.
Exactly. So Kenny suggests the logical thing. He says, let's just get takeout.
But Tony refuses.
Totally refuses. He says he has an idea and tells them to come over. So they get in his car, he drives them to a deserted high street, and the only place with its lights on is a fish and chip shop.
It's just such a bizarre mental image.
And Tony literally leads them past the takeout queue, straight to the back of the shop where there are just these 5 little plastic tables.
And Grace, ever the Duchess, refuses to downgrade her expectations for the venue.
Oh, not for a second. The waiter comes over, and she immediately orders a Harvey Wallbanger.
In a chip shop.
Yes. And Tony has to gently explain that they don't serve cocktails in a chip shop. So she pivots.
What does she ask for instead?
A screwdriver. And when she's informed they don't even have an alcohol license, she doesn't even flinch. She orders a glass of Cockney champagne.
Which turns out to be Coca-Cola. The sociology of this moment is just incredible.
It really is.
Because the few other people in a shop eventually leave, right? So it leaves this global icon and his friends totally alone.
Just sitting at plastic tables.
Yeah, and they start discussing a song Tony wrote called Quilp. And spontaneously, Tony and Kenny begin singing a duet of it. A private, impromptu concert in an empty, grease-scented room.
I have to ask you about the motivation here, though. Do you think the chip shop was an active, deliberate rebellion against the exhausting pressure of being Anthony Newley?
That's an interesting way to frame it.
Because, I mean, he could have ordered takeout and eaten in a mansion. He chose the fluorescent lights.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it an active rebellion. I think it was a symptom of profound psychological and physical exhaustion.
He was just tired.
Deeply tired. He was craving something entirely unpretentious. Because during that same dinner, we learn the context hanging over him. He confides that he is dreading an upcoming 10-day residency in Atlantic City.
Oh, right, the golden handcuffs.
Exactly. His health is declining rapidly, but those golden handcuffs of fame are tight. If he pulls out, the casino will sue him, and it would basically mean financial ruin.
So he's trapped.
He is essentially trapped by his own success. The chip shop was a rare, temporary sanctuary where nothing was expected of him. He didn't have to perform.
Wow. And the next day, Tony actually calls Kenny just to check in, and he says this really revealing line. He says, I think Susie thinks I'm a little more classy than I am.
That self-awareness is striking.
Right. It shows this acute awareness of the gap between his persona and his actual self. And that gap, that internal tension, is something he developed a very specific coping mechanism for.
Yes, the alter ego.
Exactly. He actually viewed his artistic side as a totally separate entity. He called his alter ego Newley.
In psychological terms, this is a form of dissociation.
Really? Like a defense mechanism?
Yeah, exactly. When the pressure of public scrutiny becomes too intense, creating a third-person avatar allows the individual to protect their core identity. Kenny notes that Tony would scrutinize his own past performances with almost clinical detachment.
Like it wasn't even him.
Yes. They would be listening to one of his classic hits, and Tony would suddenly say, listen to that vowel sound I'm making. Why didn't anyone tell me?
Wow. He was alienated from his own voice.
Completely alienated.
It's like a superhero who actually resents his own powers. Newley is the cape and the tights, you know. The cape pays the bills, the cape gets the applause, but the cape is just exhausting to wear.
And what happens when the cape gets fused to your skin? That was his real struggle.
Right, because he had this tragic realization about his love life. He told Kenny, every woman I've ever known has brought me to my knees. They all fell in love with Newley and then fell out of love with Tony.
It is so sad. And his perspective on marriage was heavily colored by that dissociation. He famously compared getting married to getting into a bathtub.
Oh, I remember this quote.
Yeah, he said, once you're in, it's really not so hot.
That is deeply cynical.
It is a deeply cynical view from a man who felt fundamentally unseen by his romantic partners. They were enamored with the billboard, right? Not the vulnerable man dealing with declining health and Atlantic City lawsuits.
But there was one massive exception to that rule, and her name was Gina Fratini.
Ah, yes.
She is a powerhouse in her own right, a highly successful British fashion designer. I mean, she designed Elizabeth Taylor's wedding dress for her second marriage to Richard Burton.
That is a serious credential.
Right. And Princess Diana wore her designs too. She was a titan of her industry.
She really was. Now, the context here is vital. She and Tony had actually dated back in the 1950s.
Way before the peak of his fame.
Exactly, but she walked away back then because the constant attention from other women and the pressure of his rising fame was just too toxic.
But then they found their way back to each other.
Yeah, decades pass, and in the early 90s, mutual friends bring them back together. And this time, it becomes the defining relationship of his final years. She became his caregiver and his true partner.
It feels like Gina had a distinct, almost unfair advantage here compared to his other relationships.
How do you mean?
Well, she had the baseline data. Because she knew him in the 50s, she knew Tony before the Newley virus completely took over his life.
That's a great way to put it.
And plus, having designed for Elizabeth Taylor, she wasn't going to be blinded by the glare of a Hollywood actor. She'd seen it all before.
And this precisely the mechanism at play. Fame is a currency, right? And in relationships, imbalances in that currency often lead to power struggles or, sycophancy.
Right, so one always has the upper hand.
Exactly. But Gina was independently wealthy, artistically fulfilled, and globally respected. She didn't need Newley the icon. She had the emotional bandwidth to simply love Tony the man and see right past the exhausting artist persona.
And grounded by that kind of authentic love, Tony experienced this remarkable final burst of artistic clarity, right as his physical health betrayed him entirely.
It's a very bittersweet chapter. He took a short contract on the BBC show EastEnders, which brought this huge outpouring of admiration. It really reminded the public of his sheer talent.
Yeah, they even offered him a permanent role, right?
They did, but his health wouldn't allow it. But his true final triumph was pre-recording a role as a bishop in a gritty TV drama called The Lakes.
I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. Mrs. Quinlan?
Hello.
This way. So, you're a waitress.
Yes,
Where?
the Ullswater.
Ah, nice place.
Not bad.
Sit. How are things at home?
Fine.
Do they know that you're
No.
Does your husband know?
No.
Anybody else who might?
My sister.
Your sister.
She knows I'm pregnant, that's all.
Shall we pray? Dear Lord, help us to discuss this matter with charity, clarity, and compassion. Amen.
Amen.
Are you sure this child is Matthew's?
Yes.
It couldn't possibly be your husband's.
No.
Why not? There is no way I can spare you this, I'm sorry.
We take precautions.
Accidents can happen.
Yes.
Then conceivably the child could be your husband's.
Conceivably.
Oh, yes. No pun intended, I'm sorry.
You want me to pass this child off as my husband's?
No. What I'm saying is the child could well be your husband's.
It isn't.
How can you know that? Only Almighty God could possibly know that.
Yes.
So why not accept this child as a gift from God to you and your husband?
You're asking me to lie, and I just can't lie
I
about it.
am not asking you to lie. I'm saying do not question the way God works.
I'm sorry, I just can't do that to him.
What would your husband do?
If he found out,
Yeah.
he'd do Matthew some serious damage.
Yeah. Well, there are some who might say that Matthew had it coming. Would he keep it to himself?
I don't know.
The church has many enemies, Mrs. Quinlan. They seize on the slightest whiff of scandal. Now, that can't harm a church that has thrived for 2,000 years, but it can harm the people who need that church. It can destroy their faith in the church. I want you to go home, Mrs. Quinlan. Swear your husband to total secrecy and tell him the truth.
Kenny and Sue watched it air in February of 1999, and Kenny describes it as Tony's finest acting achievement.
It really was universally praised.
But the context makes it so heartbreaking. Gina later shared that after filming that role, Tony turned to her and said, "At last, I have finally got it. I now understand how acting works."
Wow.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate cruelty of the artistic pursuit, isn't it? To spend your entire life chasing mastery, to finally decode the matrix of your craft at the exact biological moment your body ensures you will never use that knowledge again.
It's devastating. Because immediately after this realization, the renal cancer aggressively overtook him, and he left for America to seek specialized treatment.
And this is where the narrative sharply pivots. We move from the artistic to the biological, messy reality of grief.
Yeah, it gets really chaotic here. Kenny and Sue are literally watching the end of the lakes, marveling at his performance when the phone rings. It's late on a Sunday night.
Never a good time for a phone call.
Never. It's Grace. And she is in uncontrollable tears. Tony and Gina had tried to shield her from the severity of his condition, but she has just been told her son is terminally ill.
And what follows is a frantic, chaotic scramble that perfectly illustrates how families operate under severe trauma. Kenny tries to arrange for the 96-year-old Grace to fly to America immediately.
Which is a logistical nightmare.
Oh, completely. She obviously cannot navigate an international flight alone.
Tony's secretary calls back with the news that Tara cannot make the trip because she has a 4-month-old baby, Meal.
And Kenny is locked in a studio producing an album, so he can't go either.
So Kenny's wife, Sue, steps into the void without hesitation to fly with Grace.
And the logistics immediately become just awful. It costs 4,500 pounds on Kenny's American Express, which, to be fair, Tony's estate did fully reimburse years later.
But in the moment, it's an immense stress.
Absolutely. Sue and Grace fly first class to Florida, and when they finally arrive, exhausted and traumatized, Gina greets Sue by saying, "What a shame you just missed Tara."
Oh, wow. And Sue is furious.
Completely furious. She is running on empty. She asks if Tara brought the 4-month-old baby and is told no, that would have been too much for Tara to handle.
Sue then endures an absolute nightmare journey back to the UK. Severe storms, delays because the US president happens to be arriving, missed connections, flying economy on zero sleep.
Just everything going wrong at once.
Everything. She gets back to Heathrow carrying this intense anger toward Tara for not accompanying her own 96-year-old grandmother.
It's a very raw depiction of how extreme stress fractures our capacity for empathy.
It really is.
When the biological family is paralyzed by the trauma, the chosen family, in this case Kenny and Sue, step into the breach.
It really did.
They endured the financial hit, the logistical nightmare, and the emotional toll simply because of the profound loyalty Tony inspired in them.
It speaks volumes about who he was beneath the Newley cape. He actually called Kenny on March 19th for what would be their final conversation.
Oh, right.
His voice was feeble, and he just said, "I have nothing left to fight with. I am needed in another place." He passed away a few weeks later on April 14th, 1999.
Which leaves Grace entirely untethered. The balloon is gone and the anchor remains.
Oh, that's such a heavy thought.
Navigating that kind of immense void at 96 years old, it requires a specific kind of fortitude.
And she tackled it with the exact same stoicism she used to navigate his fame. Kenny and Sue made it a tradition to take her out every Saturday. They'd get pie and mash, but Grace would insist on her jellied eels, of course.
Never changing her taste.
Never. And they would tour the East End. She would navigate the streets entirely by a 70-year-old memory. She even tracked down the specific Victoria Park bandstand where her own father played music back in 1913.
That's amazing. Yet the text doesn't shy away from the profound isolation of her grief either.
No, it's very honest about it.
After these outings, Grace would retreat to what they called Tony's room, which was essentially a shrine filled with his awards, his records, and his photos.
Did she just sit there?
Yeah, she would sit there in the evenings having full conversations with him, recounting the events of her day.
It is utterly heartbreaking, but, she refused to lose her edge. Fast forward to Boxing Day lunch in 2001. She casually mentions to Kenny that she recently met with a biographer who's writing a book about Tony. And she says, "I told him everything, but but when you read it, you won't ever want to talk to me again.
Setting up the punchline.
Right. So Kenny asks what she possibly could have said, and she replies, well, I was a scarlet woman.
It's a brilliant defense mechanism.
It really is.
Even as her physical world shrinks and the grief compounds, she retains that sharp, self-deprecating wit. She absolutely refuses to be reduced to just a tragic, grieving mother.
The timeline of her own passing is where this story takes on an almost mythical quality, though. Joan Collins, who was Tony's ex-wife, is scheduled to get married on February 17th. Grace had been invited, but she made a joke about not wanting to sit alone in a corner like a lemon. So Kenny's son, Nathan, agreed to be her official chaperone.
But then, the Sunday before the wedding, Grace falls seriously ill.
Yeah, Kenny and Sue rush over, and it's immediately clear her body is failing. She begins coughing up blood, and they have to call an ambulance.
It escalated so quickly.
As the paramedics are loading her into the ambulance, she reaches out, takes Kenny and Sue's hands, and says, thank you both for everything. I don't think I'll see you again.
Wow, she just knew.
She knew. And then she goes to the hospital, critically ill, but she doesn't pass away that week. She holds on. She officially passes away the very day after Joan Collins' wedding.
That timing is incredible.
I mean, I have to ask, was that just medical coincidence or the sheer willpower of a life fully lived?
I am strongly inclined to believe it was willpower.
Really?
Yeah, it speaks to the deep-seated resilience and, frankly, the polite stubbornness of the greatest generation.
Polite stubbornness, I like that.
The idea of letting go, but ensuring your passing does not cast a shadow over a family celebration, that requires an immense amount of psychological control.
It really does.
That dignity, paired with the humor of the Scarlet Woman joke right to the end, it shows you exactly where Tony inherited his formidable stage presence.
It is an incredible legacy. And as the years went on, the physical realities of that era slowly faded. Gina Fratini passed away in 2017. Kenny notes in the text that, much like Grace, Gina never truly recovered from the loss. Her heart remained broken. Her ashes were actually flown back to the U.S. to be laid to rest alongside Tony.
And before Gina passed, she asked Kenny to go to Tony's house in Esher and gather all of his physical media. There were stacks of 16mm and 8mm film cans containing his performances in home movies.
Oh, wow.
No one really knew how to preserve them, so Kenny stored them in his studio for a time until the British Film Institute gratefully took them in, ensuring the physical artifacts of his career were permanently archived.
And that detail about the British Film Institute brings me to a thought I want you, the listener, to ponder today. The BFI now holds those physical reels in temperature-controlled vaults.
They are safe forever.
Right. They have the definitive archived evidence of Newley the artist. They have the cape. But based on everything we've unpacked today, where does the real legacy of a human being actually live?
That is the big question.
Is it in a film canister cataloged in a museum? Or is it in the memory of singing a spontaneous duet over a glass of Coca-Cola in an empty fish and chip shop?
It highlights the ultimate difference between institutional memory and human memory. We archive the artist because society demands it, but it is the people who provided the friction. The mothers, the partners, the chosen family, they are the ones who actually carry the spirit of the man forward.
Exactly. You might not have paparazzi chasing you down the street, but we all curate a Newley persona for our professional lives, don't we?
We absolutely do.
We all build a version of ourselves to handle the pressure of the 9-to-5.
Yeah.
The lesson here is to make sure you know how to take that costume off when you get home.
And more importantly, to surround yourself with people who will lovingly mock your coffee choices and keep you tethered to the ground.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, always remember to look for the humanity behind the headlines.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much of love drives a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. I let you love what I thought it was funny. You came along and woo, now honey, I've changed my mind. This love is fine. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Kisses, baby. Feels good. Hold me, baby. Well, I want to love you like I love a should. You're fine, so kind. Got to tell this world that you're mine. I chew my nails down and I twiddle my thumb. I'm real nervous, but it sure is fun. Come on, baby. It drives me crazy. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire.